Okay. Welcome to the Whiskey Vault. I'm Daniel Whittington, Chancellor of Wizard Academy and Whiskey Marketing School. I don't even know what to do with this. This is a day of gifted drams where we drink things that there's no way you're ever going to get to try. This was a gift from James Ball. Now, James is somebody that Emma and I met at a Balcones SMWS Scotch Malt Whiskey Society tasting and hit it off and had a really great time hanging out together. It turns out he's involved in the Whiskey Council of Masters program, and he came to Austin this year to do one of their certifications, I guess. Training is I guess certification is the right word. And he passed. He's one of the Council of Whiskey Masters, and he kicked, which well-deserved, because he's an amazing human being and very talented whiskey. And he brought this as a gift, which is insane. They opened it already at the graduation and the hangout with everybody. And so he brought us the rest of the bottle. And I thought, guys, you should really experience this because it's such a cool story. So I'm going to open it. Let me do my best to keep this on camera. I've discovered it's not simple because of the weight bearing of things. But like if you open it like this, there we go. Look at that. Hey, it got a little mini bottle so you can try it without opening the main bottle, which they did not do. It's got a stave and it's got a little booklet about the whole thing. Now, I'm going to take this booklet out because it's the only thing I haven't actually opened yet. And we're going to look at that in a second. And then this bottle turns out not easy to remove because it is in there snug. And I always do this and I get so nervous every time you guys are watching this. Okay. I'm going to set this right here down below for a second. We're going to close this gently. Gently. James, this is elaborate. All right. Okay. Now, I just realized I don't have my glasses. Never have them when I need them. So, Littlemill. There's not much left, but this is recently opened. The final legacy of Scotland's oldest distillery. Now, the story on this is Littlemill was proven to begin doing things in 1772. Now, technically, they're on the border of the Lowlands and the Highlands. And then 1773, they have actual retail license from King George III to produce beer, ale, and excisable liquors. And in 1772, they actually, in those days in Scotland, they would often have to build lodging for the tax officer on site because he was the one who had the keys to everything to open and like make sure that they were following all the rules and taxing all of the spirits. It did a great in the 1800s, and the story went through 1700. It changed hands multiple times, different owners. The original family sold it off. Robert Murr was one of the employees. Actually, in the 1830s, they were one of the first distilleries to have a female licensee. 1832. And that was Jane McGregor. And then it was purchased in 1870. And that was after the purchase of Matthew Clark and Co., who purchased it, and then she was the licensee. Anyway, so it goes through all of these it closes, it opens, it closes, it opens, it changes hands, it gets sold. It ends in the 30s. It's Duncan Thomas, who's an American, and he starts doing switches to double distillation in 1930s, and they do some like really innovative malting, and they have a really weird still that gets put in, which is. It's copper, but then it's stainless steel, like coated, jacketed, and then instead of having a swan line arm, it's a column, and it allows them to do a different kind of the rectification, and like the reflux is different, changes the spirit, makes it kind of a lighter, floral, fruity kind of spirit. Now, in 1990, this is not in here. Let's see, 3 casks. Okay, there's more details on the cask. We'll look into that in a second. So it ends up closing. It gets bought by, in 1994, Gibson International, the company built it. And they are the ones who did all the newer different types of distillation. And then it goes bankrupt, and it gets sold to Loch Lomond Distillery. And then it's closed and completely dismantled in 1997. And now there's like apartment complexes or housing complexes on its site. It's bought by Loch Lomond. So Loch Lomond who you guys know, we've reviewed them on the channel. They own all the stock. This is from 1992, which wouldn't have been when Gibson International owned them, right? And was making the whiskey. Master blender. Interesting. Now, they chose 3 barrels, and they're written in here, and I'm going to tell you what they are, and then we're going to talk tasting notes. 3 casks, 406, 407, and 409. They were kept on the original site in Bowling for 20 years before being relocated to the Loch Lomond Distillery, only 10 miles away in 2002. Then recasks in 2010. Then for 6 years and used bourbon. Then vatted together and finished in Oloroso hogshead for 6 months before they finally bottled them. This is not a young whiskey. And then we're going to look at what tasting notes they think they had in there versus what we find. Not that we're any better. I just like to have our own unique experience. So, bottle number 100 of 300. When was this bottled? I didn't actually look it up. Man, this is getting so low. I've shared this with a couple of the Whiskey Council crew. Sam Wright, James Ball. It's been very fun. I'm just looking to see if they said when they dumped them. Oh, here you go. 2010, 2016, too. So roughly 2019, it looks like. Or 2017, 16, 17, that would have been 17, 25. So it's in the high 20s in age. Now, we have, and you can buy this, you can buy Littlemill, 12-year-old, which would be a brand name now since Loch Lomond owns them, but a lowland Scotch. It's listed as a lowland, and you can buy Loch Lomond 12-year-old. I have it down in the vault, just on the shelf. I think I got it at Specs. And we compared it, and it's way more light and kind of fruity, and this one is funky. So, on the nose. Ooh! Ooh! Okay. Barnyard funk. Like, there's a smell. I hate to say it. There's a slight sulfur note from the sherry. There's a barnyard grain funk. It does not smell great. It's weird. Now, if you like weird and unique, you're going to be like, oh, interesting. It is interesting, for sure, but it is funky. And now, I remember the first time I ran a malt distillation on my baby pot still, and totally legally. And I had done a fermentation that was like a 6-day fermentation in tanks, and then I dumped the grains in my back garden. Turned out to be a huge mistake because 2 days later, I have the tank and I'm going to start doing distillation on my little pot still, 26 gallon. And I walk out into my backyard, start prepping equipment. I mean, totally in a licensed distillery. And the whole backyard is just filled with the smell of that spent grain from the fermentations, because I fermented on grain. And it's not great. It's sour and funk and barnyard. And all I could think was, oh my God, my neighbors are going to be furious. The whole area just smelled like molding going off spent grain. I raked it out to spread it out and tried to shovel dirt onto it, and it took about 2 weeks before it was totally gone. The smell of it was totally gone. But if you went over there and like raked through that dirt patch where it was, it's immediately like back, you know? And so 2 or 3 weeks later, I went to plant something in that garden, and I kind of shoveled back the dirt. And behind the shoveling back of the dirt was the remnants of that smell of that old grain. And it reminds me a lot of what I'm smelling in here, which is this just funky dirt and spent grain mixed with a overlapping kind of sherry fruit note, but the sulfuric notes of the sherry are like really overlaying that grain funk, and they're highlighting the grain funk. And so I'm not just getting a nice sherry sulfur note, or that sort of spicy, but behind all of that, as it sits, there's a sweetness. But this is funky. If it's compared to the Littlemill is light and pretty, and everything this isn't on the nose. Way more just approachable and pleasant. This is weird. Now, on the palate, it turns okay. On the palate, you get roasted almonds and honey drizzle. Still a little bit of grain, which is weird for an older whiskey. Still a little bit of like that malt funk in the palate, but it just rolls out honeyed almonds, candied almonds, slight bready, yeasty note. And then ends with a just slightly, almost bitter chocolate darkness across all of this almond and honey cream and slight grainy notes. And after you've sipped it, the nose stays funky. I feel like maybe it's psychosomatic because I've had this before and I was remarking then about it, and so maybe I'm like really dramatizing it. Here, Mike, smell this.
Yeah.
It smells like something's a little off, right?
It almost feels like I'm picking up more of the alcohol than
Yeah.
I normally do from.
It's shiny. It's so weird. I remember having a long discussion with a couple of people in the whiskey industry who handle old barrels. And sometimes you have old barrels, and I talked about this with Sam, I think. Sometimes you have old barrels where you're a big enough company that you can afford to set aside barrels and let them reach the higher age statements because it's going to become part of your luxury pricing portfolio. Sometimes you have an old barrel because someone forgot about it and you find it when you're moving things around and you're like, oh crap. And sometimes you have a barrel that just keeps getting put back because as you're doing sensory on it and you're pulling it for blending, it just never fits the profile you need. And so it just keeps getting set back again, right? And then eventually it reaches an age statement or a specialty or a remarkable uniqueness and rarity that you're like, you know what, screw it, let's release it sort of on its own somehow, right? And I feel like this might have ended up as a blend of those things where it's like, it's a little bit like we have these special old barrels from the Gibson era, and we're going to do some recasking and finishing and try to like tailor these notes down, but it's funky. But it's rare enough that we're just going to go for it anyway because it's historic. As opposed to we're going to craft an older whiskey that's specifically designed to be delicate and beautiful and all these magical things. This feels like a special thing because it's rare and because it's weird and because it's unique, as opposed to something blended to a beautiful profile to achieve something. And you get a really unique experience if you ever get a chance. If you're one of the Soms, there's not hardly anything left. We have a little bit of that little sample bottle. We'll be able to pour one that everyone in the group can kind of take a little sip of. But James, thank you for such an incredibly generous experience. This was really fun. They say light and floral. I'm not getting that at all, and maybe I'm broken. But there's no world where I would have described this nose as light and floral. The Littlemill 12, yes. This one, no. But hey, we're all fallible human beings. Anyway, this was a fun experience. I hope you have a good weekend. Cheers to you. And I'm really glad you're here. Funky palate, funky weird nose, generous gift, generous human beings. That's what this channel is all about. If you like that, then like and subscribe.